I stood alone near the oak tree, watching mourners leave my son William's funeral. My ears perked up when I heard my daughter-in-law Jessica's hushed voice from behind the memorial tent. "Now I'll finally get rid of that old man," she told her friends, not knowing I was within earshot. "Chase deserves to be in a nursing home anyway. Once the will is read, I'll have control of everything." My heart stopped. For 30 years I'd served as a judge, but nothing prepared me for this betrayal on the worst day of my life. The drive home from the cemetery was silent. Jessica stared out the passenger window while I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white. The words I'd overheard kept replaying in my mind. How could she speak that way at William's funeral? My son, my only child, was gone forever at just 45 years old, and already his wife was planning to discard me. I pulled into the driveway of the colonial-style home William had purchased 10 years ago. It was a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood with mature trees and well-maintained lawns. William had been so proud when he bought it, seeing it as a symbol of his success as an attorney. Now I wondered if I would soon be forced to leave. "I think I'll lie down," Jessica said flatly as we entered the house. Dealing with all those people was exhausting. I nodded, watching her climb the stairs. She was still an attractive woman at 42, with her shoulder-length blonde hair and trim figure. When William first introduced her 15 years ago, I thought she seemed ambitious but caring. My late wife Martha had her reservations, describing Jessica as calculating, but I dismissed it as overprotectiveness. I wandered into William's home office and sat in his leather chair, running my hands along the desk where he'd spent countless evenings working. It still smelled like him, a faint hint of the sandalwood cologne he favored. I'd helped him establish his law practice after he graduated, using my connections from 3 decades on the bench to introduce him to the right people. He'd built something remarkable from that foundation, becoming one of the most respected attorneys in town. 2 years ago, when Martha lost her battle with cancer, William insisted I sell my house and move in with them. "Dad, that place is too big for you now," he'd said. "We have plenty of room, and you shouldn't be alone." I'd initially resisted, valuing my independence, but eventually relented. At 68 I was still healthy and active, but the idea of family close by was comforting. Jessica had seemed supportive of the arrangement at first. "Family should stick together," she'd said. But over time, I noticed her growing resentment. Small comments, sighs when I entered a room, conversations that stopped when I appeared. William's death had been sudden and devastating. He collapsed while jogging in the park 3 weeks ago, a massive heart attack that gave him no chance. One minute he was alive, vibrant, successful. The next, gone forever. During the funeral arrangements, Jessica had been oddly efficient, handling details with a detachment that struck me as unnatural. In public, she played the grieving widow perfectly, but in private, her eyes remained dry and calculating. Something caught my attention on the desk, a folder partially hidden beneath some legal journals. I pulled it out and felt my blood run cold. Inside were glossy brochures for various nursing homes and assisted living facilities within a 100-mile radius. Handwritten notes in the margins, unmistakably Jessica's elegant script, rated them on factors like distance from town and visitability. One note particularly stood out. "Pinewood. Too close. People might expect regular visits." Another page was dated just 6 weeks ago with the note, "Getting him out of the house by November." November, next month. They'd been planning to move me out even before William died. My hands trembled as I returned the folder exactly as I'd found it. I'd spent my career reading people, determining truth from lies in my courtroom. Now I needed those skills more than ever. As I left the office, I noticed a photo of William, Jessica, and me at his 40th birthday party. We were all smiling, but looking at it now, I could see the strain in William's eyes. Had their marriage been struggling? They'd never had children despite years of trying. William had once confided it was a source of tension between them. "Jessica says without kids, we can focus on our careers, travel more," he'd told me. But I always pictured having a family. I made a decision sitting there in William's office. I would keep what I'd overheard and discovered to myself for now. The will reading wasn't scheduled for another 2 weeks. I needed to understand what was really happening here before I made any move. After 30 years making judgments based on evidence, I wasn't about to act on emotion alone, no matter how betrayed I felt. The days following the funeral brought subtle changes to the house. Jessica's demeanor toward me cooled considerably. Our interactions, already limited, became brief and strictly practical. The garbage needs to go out, or I'll be out late tonight. No more pretense of familial warmth. One morning, I came downstairs to find a stranger rearranging the living room furniture. Family photos were being removed from the walls, including several featuring William as a child and our family vacations. "What's happening here?" I asked, confused. Jessica appeared from the kitchen with a coffee mug in hand. "Oh, I'm just refreshing the space. All these old photos were making it difficult to move forward." "These are our family memories," I said, picking up a frame showing William's law school graduation. "And I've digitized them all," she replied smoothly. "They're not gone, just not needed on display. The designer thinks a more minimalist approach will help the house show better." "Show better? Are you selling the house?" Jessica's smile tightened. "I'm just exploring options, Chase. This place has a lot of memories. It might be healthier to start fresh." That afternoon, my old friend Frank stopped by. We'd worked together for 20 years, he as my bailiff, me as judge. Since retirement, we'd maintained our friendship through weekly chess games and fishing trips. I hadn't seen him since the funeral. "How are you holding up?" Frank asked as we sat on the back porch with glasses of iced tea. "One day at a time," I replied honestly. "It still doesn't seem real." Frank nodded sympathetically. At 72, he'd already lost a son in a military training accident, so he understood my grief better than most. "And how are things with Jessica?" he asked carefully. I hesitated, unsure how much to share. "Different. She's changing things quickly." Frank's eyes narrowed. "I noticed something at the funeral. When you were speaking with Reverend Patterson, I saw her outside with a man I didn't recognize. They seemed very familiar with each other." "A relative, maybe?" "Possible," Frank conceded. "But the body language wasn't familial, if you catch my meaning." Later that evening, after Jessica had gone out to meet friends, I found myself drawn back to William's office. This had been his sanctuary, the place where he thought clearest. Perhaps here I could find some answers. His laptop sat on the desk. I knew his password, my wife's birthday, as he'd asked me to access files for him occasionally when he was traveling for work. I felt a momentary twinge of guilt as I logged in, but pushed it aside. This wasn't idle snooping, something wasn't right. I opened his financial software and began reviewing the accounts. William had always been meticulous with money, a trait I'd instilled in him from childhood. What I found disturbed me. Over the past year, large sums had been withdrawn from their joint accounts, $20,000 here, $15,000 there, with notations like household renovation or investment opportunity. None of these matched any actual home improvements I'd observed, and William had never mentioned new investments. A notification popped up on the screen. An email. Ordinarily, I would never read someone else's correspondence, but I clicked it open. It was from their bank, confirming a wire transfer of $50,000 to an account I didn't recognize, dated just 2 days before William's death. The front door opened and closed. I quickly shut down the computer and moved to the hallway. Jessica was on her phone, speaking in hushed tones. "It's all proceeding as planned, Brian," she said, not noticing me in the shadows. "We just need to be patient for a few more weeks." "Yes, after the will reading, everything changes." "I know, I miss you too." She ended the call and jumped when she saw me. "Chase, you startled me." "Sorry," I said, maintaining a neutral expression. "I was just getting some water." "Who's Brian?" Her face smoothed into practiced innocence. "My personal trainer. He's checking on me, making sure I'm taking care of myself during this difficult time." I nodded and wished her good night, but my mind was racing. A personal trainer calling late in the evening? And what exactly was proceeding as planned? The next morning, Jessica approached me as I read the newspaper at the kitchen table. "Chase, I've been thinking. This might be a good time for you to consider options for your care going forward." I looked up at her. "My care? I'm perfectly capable of caring for myself." "Of course you are," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But living alone isn't ideal for someone your age. I've gathered some information about really lovely communities where you'd have companions your own age, activities, medical staff if needed." "Jessica, I'm 68, not 98. I don't need assisted living." She sighed dramatically. "Well, the thing is, I'm not sure I can maintain this big house by myself. And since William's gone, we don't know what William's wishes were regarding the house yet," I reminded her. "The will reading is still days away." Her expression hardened momentarily before smoothing out again. Of course. I'm just trying to be practical about the future. Later that day, I drove to William's law office. I wanted to speak with Abigail, his paralegal of many years. If anyone knew what William had been working on before his death, it would be her. Abigail was a serious young woman with an encyclopedic memory. When I arrived, her eyes were red-rimmed from crying. "Judge Chase," she said, standing to greet me. "I'm so sorry about William. He was the best boss I've ever had." "Thank you, Abigail. And please, it's just Chase now. I've been retired for years." She smiled sadly. "You'll always be judge to everyone here. William was so proud of your career." We talked about my son for a while, sharing memories. Then I carefully steered the conversation. Was William working on anything unusual in the weeks before he died? Anything that seemed to concern him? Abigail's expression changed subtly. "He was working on some personal legal matters. He asked for privacy, which wasn't like him." "Do you know what kind of legal matters?" She hesitated. "I shouldn't say attorney-client privilege. I understand, but I'm his father and his only blood relative. If there's something I should know." Abigail looked conflicted. He was updating some documents, and he seemed troubled. The day before he died, he locked himself in his office for hours. When he came out, he gave me an envelope and said, "If anything happens to me, make sure this gets to the right people." I asked what he meant, but he just smiled and said he was being paranoid. "Do you still have the envelope?" "No, sir." Per his instructions, I gave it to Sam Turner after the funeral. Sam Turner had been William's friend since law school and was now a partner at another firm. They'd remained close despite being occasional opponents in court. "Thank you, Abigail. You've been helpful." As I turned to leave, she called after me. "Judge Chase? Be careful." William was worried about something. Really worried. On my way home, I stopped at a cafe and found a quiet corner to think. What had William been concerned about? And who was this Brian that Jessica was speaking with so intimately? My phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, is this Chase Harrison?" a male voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" "Dr. Porter, William's physician. I hope I'm not intruding, but I wanted to check on you. William spoke of you often." "That's kind of you, doctor. I'm managing as well as can be expected. I wanted to tell you something that's been bothering me," he continued. "William came to see me about 3 weeks before he died. He mentioned experiencing some strange symptoms: dizziness, nausea, heart palpitations. I ran tests, but nothing conclusive appeared. He said the symptoms seemed to come on after meals at home. I suggested it might be stress or possibly a food allergy, but he seemed suspicious of something else." "What do you mean?" He asked me, hypothetically, what symptoms someone might experience if they were being given certain medications without their knowledge. It struck me as an odd question. My blood ran cold. Did he elaborate? No, and I didn't press. "But given what happened, I just thought you should know." I thanked the doctor and sat in stunned silence. William had suspected something was wrong. And now, so did I. When I returned to the house, I found a small, leather-bound book tucked inside William's old college textbook on his bookshelf, a journal I hadn't known he kept. The most recent entries confirmed my worst fears. Jessica's spending is out of control again. When confronted, she denied everything despite the bank statements. Found receipts for jewelry I've never seen her wear. Who is she buying these things for? Saw Jessica with Brian at Lakeside Cafe when she was supposed to be at her mother's. They didn't see me. The way they touched each other left no doubt. How long has this been going on? Woke up with heart racing again last night. Always after Jessica brings me tea before bed. Am I imagining things or is something happening? Will stop drinking anything I don't prepare myself and see if symptoms continue. The final entry, dated just 3 days before his death. Meeting with Sam tomorrow to update everything. Can't trust Jay anymore. Need to protect Dad. I closed the journal, my hands shaking. William had known about Jessica's affair, he'd suspected she might be drugging him, and he'd been taking steps to protect me just before he died. I slipped the journal into my pocket. The pieces were starting to fit together, forming a picture too terrible to contemplate. "I've decided to renovate the guest room," Jessica announced at breakfast 1 week after the funeral. "The contractor starts tomorrow." "The guest room?" I questioned, setting down my coffee mug. "That's where I'm staying." Jessica waved her hand dismissively. "You can use William's old home office for now. I've already moved a cot in there. Without discussing it with me first? Chase, this is my house now, she said, her voice taking on a hard edge I'd rarely heard before. I'm trying to be considerate by giving you options, but ultimately, these decisions are mine to make. The will hasn't been read yet, I reminded her. Legally, we don't know whose house this is. Jessica's eyes narrowed. William and I were married for 15 years. Do you really think he would leave his home to anyone else? I didn't answer, but I knew my son better than she did. If he'd discovered her affair and suspected her of more sinister actions, he would have taken steps. That night, workmen arrived and began dismantling my room. By morning it was uninhabitable. Floors torn up, walls stripped to the studs. I relocated to the small, cramped office with nothing but a narrow cot and a small dresser for my belongings. Over the next few days, my living situation deteriorated further. Items from my room mysteriously disappeared during the renovation. My favorite watch, a gift from Martha on our 30th anniversary, vanished from the bathroom counter. A framed photo of William as a little boy fishing with me was found broken, the picture water damaged beyond repair. So sorry, Jessica said insincerely when I mentioned these incidents. The workers must have been careless. I'll speak to them. I knew she was lying. This was deliberate. The following weekend, Jessica invited friends over for what she called a healing gathering. What it actually became was a loud party lasting well past midnight, with music thumping through the walls of my makeshift bedroom. When I emerged to ask them to lower the volume, I found Jessica and her friends drinking expensive wine from William's cherished collection. "Dad," she slurred, using the term mockingly. "Come join us. We're celebrating life." "Celebrating seems premature," I observed quietly. A tall, muscular man with a too-perfect tan stood with his arm casually around Jessica's waist. "You must be the father-in-law," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Brian, Jessica's personal trainer." So this was Brian. I shook his hand, noting the expensive watch on his wrist, one I hadn't seen before but recognized from luxury magazine advertisements. It would cost several months of a personal trainer's salary. "Nice watch," I commented. Brian and Jessica exchanged a quick glance. "Thanks," he replied. "Gift from a grateful client." The stress of the situation began affecting my health. I developed insomnia, lying awake listening to Jessica's late-night phone conversations. My appetite diminished. One morning I found myself lightheaded after standing too quickly. Jessica witnessed this and immediately pounced. "See? This is exactly why we need to consider proper care options for you. You're not well." "I'm fine," I insisted. "Just a little ditzy." "I'm making you an appointment with Dr. Lewis," she declared. "He specializes in geriatric care." "I have my own doctor, thank you." She ignored me, already on her phone scheduling the appointment. That evening, Jessica prepared dinner, a rare occurrence since William's death. She set a plate before me with what looked like a seafood pasta. "I know you're not eating enough," she said with unconvincing concern. "This should tempt your appetite." I looked at the dish suspiciously. "There's shrimp in this." "Yes, it's my special recipe." "I'm allergic to shellfish." "William would have told you that." Jessica's expression flickered between surprise and something darker. "Oh, I completely forgot. How silly of me." But I knew William would never have forgotten to mention my shellfish allergy to his wife. It had sent me to the emergency room twice in my life. This wasn't a mistake, it was a deliberate attempt to make me ill. "I'll make you something else," she offered, reaching for my plate. "No need," I said, standing. "I'm not hungry anyway." The next day, I called Sam Turner. We arranged to meet at a cafe far from town, where we wouldn't be seen by anyone who might report back to Jessica. Sam had aged since I'd last seen him, his once dark hair now mostly gray, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. He'd been William's best friend since they competed against each other in law school moot court competitions. "Judge Chase," he greeted me warmly. "I've been hoping you'd call." "Just Chase, please. Thank you for meeting me." Sam studied my face. "You look tired." "It's been a difficult time," I admitted, and becoming more difficult by the day. I shared what I'd learned. The overheard conversation at the funeral, the nursing home brochures, Jessica's behavior, the missing items, the shellfish incident, and most importantly, William's journal entries. Sam listened without interrupting, his expression growing grimmer. When I finished, he sat back with a heavy sigh. I was afraid of this. William came to me about 2 weeks before he died. He was concerned about Jessica's behavior and spending. He asked me to help him protect his assets and make certain provisions. Sam hesitated. He specifically mentioned wanting to ensure you were taken care of, no matter what. Did he update his will? I can't discuss the specifics until the official reading, Sam said apologetically, but I can tell you he was very thorough and very concerned about protecting both you and his legacy. Did he mention suspecting Jessica of harming him in some way? Sam's face darkened. He hinted at it, said he'd been experiencing strange symptoms that only occurred at home. I urged him to go to the police, but he wanted evidence first. My access to transportation became another point of contention. The Audi had been Williams, but Jessica claimed it as hers now despite having her own BMW. When I needed to go somewhere, I had to arrange it hours in advance, and she frequently forgot our arrangements. "Sorry," she would say with false sweetness. "I had an appointment I couldn't miss." I began using rideshare services and taxis, an expense I hadn't anticipated. My retirement savings were healthy thanks to careful planning, but I'd never expected to be functionally homeless at my age. During this time, I reconnected with William's doctor, pressing for details about the symptoms William had reported. Dizziness, heart palpitations, confusion at times, Dr. Porter explained, all somewhat vague and easily attributed to stress or age. But William was in excellent physical condition. His annual physical just 2 months before showed nothing concerning. Could these symptoms be caused by some kind of medication or poison? I asked directly. Dr. Porter's expression grew serious. Many substances could cause such symptoms. Some heart and blood pressure medications, for instance, if given to someone who doesn't need them. Certain anxiety medications. Even some natural supplements in large quantities. Would they be detectable after death? Some would, some wouldn't. It depends on the substance, how long it was used, and how quickly toxicology tests were performed. This conversation left me deeply troubled. I knew the medical examiner had ruled William's death a heart attack, with no autopsy performed given his doctor's statement that he'd complained of chest discomfort previously. What if there was more to the story? I tried accessing William's phone, but it was password protected and I didn't know the code. Jessica had claimed it was lost after his death, but I suspected she had it hidden somewhere. The final blow came when I discovered a folder of real estate documents in Jessica's purse while looking for the car keys. She'd already listed the house with a realtor, with a note indicating it should be ready to show by month's end. There were also printouts of luxury condominiums in Florida, circled and annotated with comments like "perfect for us" and "close to the marina for B's boat." That evening, I directly confronted Jessica about what I'd overheard at the funeral. "I don't know what you think you heard," she said coolly, "but grief makes people imagine things." "I know about Brian," I told her. "I know about the money withdrawals." I found William's journal. For a moment, fear flashed across her face, but she quickly recovered. "William's journal? He didn't keep a journal." "You're confused, Chase. This is exactly why we need to consider proper care options for you. Memory issues at your age are nothing to ignore." "My memory is perfectly fine," I insisted, "and we both know it." Jessica's friendly mask slipped entirely then. "Listen to me carefully. The will reading is in 3 days. After that, this house and everything in it belongs to me. You'd be wise to start looking for somewhere else to live. Your Social Security check won't go far in this town. We'll see what William's will actually says," I replied calmly. She laughed, a cold, hard sound. "William and I had an agreement. Everything goes to the surviving spouse. It's standard, unless changes were made." Jessica's eyes narrowed dangerously. "What are you implying?" "Only that William was a careful man who valued justice above all else." The next day, when I returned from meeting with Frank to discuss legal options, I found my remaining belongings packed in boxes in the garage. My bed had been removed from the office, replaced with packing materials and renovation supplies. "The contractors needed the space," Jessica explained, without apology. "There's a decent motel on Highway 31 that rents by the week." I looked at this woman, whom my son had loved and trusted, and saw nothing but cold calculation in her eyes. But I also saw fear. She wasn't certain of her position, which meant William had indeed made changes she wasn't aware of. "The will reading is tomorrow," I said quietly. "I think I can manage one more night under the same roof as my son's widow." That night, I slept in William's car in the garage, unwilling to risk whatever Jessica might attempt in a final bid to force me out or undermine my credibility before the will reading. As I lay there in the darkness, I felt William's presence somehow, and a certainty that justice would prevail. The next morning, Sam called. "Judge," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger, "there's something you need to know before today's meeting. I've discovered that William had a security system installed in the house 6 months ago. Cameras with audio in several rooms. The footage was saved to a secure cloud account." My heart raced. "Did you review it?" "Yes," Sam confirmed grimly. "And it changes everything. I've downloaded key segments for today's meeting. Be prepared. It's worse than we thought." The day of the will reading dawned clear and cold. I'd spent an uncomfortable night in William's Audi, but I felt strangely calm. After weeks of uncertainty and mounting tension, today would bring answers and, I hoped, justice. I showered at Frank's house and borrowed a tie. My court days were long behind me, but I still believed in showing proper respect for legal proceedings. Frank insisted on driving me to the law offices where the will would be read. "No sense taking chances," he said gruffly. "Not after everything you've told me." Jessica had made it clear she didn't want me riding with her, which suited me fine. As we pulled into the parking lot of Goldstein, Turner and Associates, I spotted her BMW already there, parked next to a shiny red Corvette I recognized as belonging to Brian. "He's got nerve showing up here," Frank muttered. "He's overconfident," I replied. "That's good. Overconfidence leads to mistakes." The conference room was elegantly appointed with a long mahogany table and leather chairs. Jessica sat near the head of the table, wearing a black dress that seemed more appropriate for a cocktail party than a will reading. Beside her sat Gordon Hughes, an attorney I recognized from divorce cases in my courtroom years ago. He had a reputation for aggressive tactics. Sam Turner entered, carrying a leather portfolio and a laptop. Behind him came Rachel Wilson, a senior partner at the firm and William's mentor when he first passed the bar. Her presence surprised me. She rarely handled routine matters anymore. "Good morning," Rachel said formally. "We're here to read the last will and testament of William Harrison. Before we begin, I should note that this will was executed 2 weeks before William's passing and replaces all previous versions." Jessica's head snapped up, her expression suddenly alert. 2 weeks before? But our joint will was completed years ago. Rachel ignored the interruption. "As the named executor of the estate, I'll be overseeing the distribution of assets according to William's explicit instructions." "This is irregular," Gordon Hughes interjected. "My client wasn't informed of any changes to their mutual estate plan." "William was under no obligation to inform anyone of changes to his will, Counselor," Rachel replied coolly. "Now, if there are no further interruptions." Rachel opened the portfolio and began reading. "I, William James Harrison, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils, and declare this to be my last will and testament." Jessica shifted uncomfortably in her chair as Rachel continued. "Before detailing the distribution of my assets, I wish to explain the reasoning behind my decisions. I have recently discovered disturbing information regarding my wife, Jessica Harrison's, financial activities and personal conduct." Jessica gasped. "This is outrageous. I demand." "Mrs. Harrison," Rachel said sharply, "you will have an opportunity to speak later. For now, I must insist you remain silent while I complete the reading." Rachel resumed. "William has left a video statement that he requested be played at this time." She opened the laptop and turned it to face the room. William's face appeared on screen, recorded in what appeared to be his office at the law firm. He looked tired but determined. "If you're watching this, I'm no longer alive," he began. "I've created this will and this recording because I fear for my safety and for my father's future well-being." Jessica's face had drained of color. Her attorney placed a restraining hand on her arm as she started to rise. "Over the past 6 months, William continued on screen, I've discovered that my wife Jessica has been engaged in an affair with her personal trainer, Brian Walsh. More disturbingly, I've found evidence that they have been systematically draining our joint accounts to finance their relationship and future plans together." William's image was replaced by bank statements, credit card receipts, and photographs of Jessica and Brian together in intimate situations. "I installed a security system in our home after becoming suspicious," William's voice narrated. "What I captured was more than evidence of infidelity." The video switched to footage from what appeared to be the kitchen. Jessica was clearly visible, adding something to a cup of tea, then bringing it to William in his home office. Other clips showed her rifling through his briefcase, photographing documents, and having explicit conversations with Brian about their future plans. Most damning was a clip from what appeared to be 3 days before William's death. He was on the floor of the living room, clearly in distress, calling for help. Jessica entered the frame, looked at him, then deliberately turned and left the room, checking her watch. She returned 20 minutes later, finding him recovered but weak, and acted concerned, claiming she'd just gotten home. "Oh my God," Frank whispered beside me. The video returned to William's face. "I don't know if Jessica intends actual physical harm or merely wants to undermine my health to gain control of our assets. But I fear for my father, who has been living with us since my mother's passing. Jessica has made it clear she wants him out, despite my objections." I felt a lump in my throat as my son spoke of his concerns for me. "Therefore," William continued, "I have updated my will to ensure my father's security and to prevent Jessica from benefiting from any action she might take against me." The video ended, and Rachel resumed reading the will. "To my father, Judge Chase Harrison, I leave our family home at 1412 Maple Avenue to be his for the remainder of his life, after which ownership shall transfer to the William Harrison Foundation, which this will establishes." Jessica made a strangled sound but remained seated. "I leave all financial assets, including bank accounts, investments, and retirement funds, in trust to be administered by Rachel Wilson for the following purposes. First, to ensure my father's comfort and care for the remainder of his life. Second, to fund the William Harrison Legal Scholarship for deserving students from underprivileged backgrounds." Rachel continued through various smaller bequests to friends, colleagues, and charities. Finally, she reached the portion addressing Jessica. "To my wife, Jessica Harrison, I leave the sum of $10,000 and her personal belongings, excluding all items that were owned by my family prior to our marriage. This bequest is conditional upon her not contesting this will or making any claims against my estate or my father." Jessica leapt to her feet. "This is a farce. He can't disinherit his wife like this. Gordon, do something." Her attorney looked distinctly uncomfortable. "Mrs. Harrison, in light of the video evidence, I strongly advise—" "I don't care about the video. It's been doctored or taken out of context." She turned to me, eyes blazing. "You did this. You turned him against me." "Jessica," I said calmly, "William made his own decisions based on what he discovered." "This will not stand," she hissed. "I'll contest it. I was his wife for 15 years. "You're welcome to try," Rachel said, closing the portfolio. "However, I should inform you that William provided extensive documentation beyond what was shown today. Additionally, the house has been placed in a living trust effective immediately, so it is not part of the probate estate and cannot be contested." Jessica turned to her attorney. "Gordon, we're leaving. Now." As they gathered their things, Sam approached me. "There's more you should know," he said quietly. William suspected Jessica might have contributed to his health issues. He had blood samples taken and stored at an independent lab, with instructions to test them if anything happened to him. "And?" I asked, my throat tight. "The results came back yesterday. Elevated levels of digoxin, a heart medication neither he nor you have been prescribed. It causes exactly the symptoms he described if given to someone who doesn't need it." My legs felt weak. "Are you saying she poisoned him?" "We've turned the information over to the police. They'll want to speak with you, but they're already investigating." I watched Jessica storm out of the conference room, her lawyer trailing behind her. Brian was waiting in the lobby, his expression changing from expectant to concerned as he saw Jessica's face. Rachel approached and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "William loved you very much, Chase. He wanted to make sure you were protected." "Thank you," I managed to say through the emotion clogging my throat. "William was always a good son. He was a good man," Rachel agreed. "And he learned that from you." As Frank and I left the building, we passed Jessica and Brian in heated conversation by their cars. Jessica glared at me with pure hatred, but I felt only sadness for the woman who had so thoroughly betrayed my son's trust. "Let's go home," Frank said. "Your home." Home. The house William had bought, filled with memories of him. It would remain my sanctuary, just as he'd intended. Despite the grief and betrayal, I felt a profound gratitude for my son's foresight and love. 3 days after the will reading, Jessica's attorney filed a formal contest, claiming William wasn't of sound mind when he made the changes. It was a weak argument given William's video testimony and his professional standing, but it would delay the final settlement of the estate. In the meantime, the trust Rachel Wilson controlled ensured I had access to the house and sufficient funds for expenses. Jessica had moved out the day of the will reading, taking only her clothing and personal items as specified. I learned she was staying with Brian in his apartment across town. The red Corvette frequently parked outside the house had disappeared, along with Jessica's constant manipulation and cold presence. The house felt both emptier and more peaceful. Detective James Callahan from the County Sheriff's Department arrived one morning to discuss the evidence Sam had provided regarding William's suspicions and blood tests. "We're taking this very seriously," Callahan assured me, a stocky man with 20 years of law enforcement experience. "Tampering with someone's food or drink is a serious crime, even without fatal consequences. With a death involved, we're looking at potential homicide charges." "Do you have enough evidence?" I asked, serving coffee at the kitchen table that had once been the center of family gatherings. "We're building the case carefully," he replied. "The blood tests show elevated levels of digoxin, consistent with William's symptoms. We've obtained a warrant to search Miss Harrison's current residence and her personal devices. She'll claim the blood tests were contaminated or that William took the medication himself." Callahan nodded. "That's why we need additional evidence. Your son's foresight in installing the security system may prove crucial. We're reviewing all the footage Sam Turner provided." A week later, Jessica escalated her counterattack. I was served with papers alleging I had manipulated William in his final days, taking advantage of his illness to turn him against her. She further claimed I had fabricated evidence of her affair and financial misconduct. Sam arranged for Amanda Drake, a sharp young attorney from his firm, to represent me. "This is baseless harassment," Amanda assured me during our first meeting. "Jessica is desperate and lashing out. Her case has no merit, but it will drag things out," I noted wearily. "Yes, that's her strategy. Wear you down, drain resources, hope you'll settle just to end it." "I won't settle," I said firmly. "William deserves justice," Amanda smiled. "That's what I told Sam you'd say. Don't worry, we're prepared for a long fight if necessary." Meanwhile, Jessica began a whisper campaign in the community, telling mutual friends and acquaintances that I was suffering from early dementia and had poisoned William against her in his final days. Some believed her, and I noticed former friends avoiding me at the grocery store or local restaurants. But others stood firmly by me. William's colleagues from the law firm, my former courthouse staff, neighbors who had witnessed Jessica's cold behavior over the years. They reached out with support and offers of help. Frank organized a weekly poker night with some of our old friends, bringing life and laughter back into the house that had felt so oppressive under Jessica's reign. Abigail from William's office dropped by regularly with home-cooked meals and updates about the scholarship fund being established in William's name. 3 weeks after filing her contest, Jessica's case suffered its first major blow. Detective Callahan called to inform me they had discovered a damning piece of evidence. "We found a prescription for digoxin in Miss Harrison's name in their bathroom cabinet," he explained. "The interesting thing is, it wasn't prescribed by her regular doctor. We traced it to a walk-in clinic 2 towns over, where she used her maiden name and complained of heart palpitations." "That seems suspicious," I observed. "Very. Especially since her medical records show no history of heart problems. We've also recovered text messages between her and Mr. Pardos Walsh discussing William's health and making references to the plan and speeding things up. The investigation was progressing, but Jessica's legal maneuvers continued. Her attorney filed motions for financial support from the estate during the contestation period, claiming she was entitled to spousal maintenance. Rachel Wilson, as executor, firmly opposed these motions. "She has $10,000 from the will she hasn't even collected yet," Rachel pointed out during a conference call with Amanda and me. "And she's living with her boyfriend, who appears to have benefited substantially from funds diverted from the marriage." The judge agreed, denying Jessica's request for additional funds. As the weeks passed, I began healing from both William's loss and Jessica's betrayal. I established a new routine, started volunteering at the county law library 2 days a week, and reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my years of grief after Martha's death. The house slowly transformed as well. I removed the cold, modern furnishings Jessica had preferred and replaced them with warmer, more comfortable pieces. I rehung family photographs and added new ones, including a portrait of William from his law school graduation that now held the place of honor in the living room. One evening, as Frank and I sat on the back porch watching fireflies appear in the gathering dusk, my phone rang. It was Detective Callahan. "Judge Harrison, I wanted you to hear this from me first," he said, his voice serious but with an undercurrent of satisfaction. "We've made an arrest in your son's case." My hand tightened on the phone. "Jessica?" "Yes, sir." "And Brian Walsh as an accessory. We executed a search warrant on a storage unit rented in his name and found a laptop containing extensive correspondence between them, dating back almost 2 years. The content explicitly discusses plans to, and I quote, get William out of the picture and deal with the old man." I closed my eyes, the confirmation of what I'd suspected bringing both pain and a strange relief. "There's more," Callahan continued. "We found the actual heart medication, partially used pill bottles, and research on how to administer it to cause symptoms without raising suspicion. Miss Harrison's fingerprints are all over these materials." "What happens now?" I asked. "They'll be arraigned tomorrow. Given the evidence, I expect the DA will pursue first-degree murder charges against Jessica and conspiracy charges against Walsh. His attorney is already making noises about a plea deal in exchange for testimony." "Brian's turning on Jessica?" "Apparently loyalty isn't his strong suit," Callahan said dryly. "He claims she was the mastermind and he was just following along because he loved her." After thanking the detective, I shared the news with Frank, who let out a long, low whistle. "Justice is coming," he said, raising his glass in a toast to William's memory. The next day's local newspaper carried the story on the front page. "Local attorney's death investigated as homicide. Widow arrested." The article detailed Jessica's arrest and the allegations against her, including the systematic poisoning of William with heart medication and the financial fraud uncovered during the investigation. My phone rang constantly with calls from concerned friends and reporters seeking comments. I issued a brief statement through Amanda, asking for privacy and expressing confidence in the legal system I'd served for so many years. That evening, a knock at the door revealed a nervous-looking Brian Walsh, released on bail but clearly shaken. His lawyer stood beside him on the porch. "Mr. Harrison," the lawyer began, "my client would like to speak with you regarding certain matters pertinent to your son's case." I regarded Brian coldly. "I have nothing to say to him." "Please," Brian said, his confident demeanor gone. "I need to explain. Jessica, she manipulated me too. I never wanted William to die. I thought we were just going to divorce him and take some money. Things got out of control." "You should save your explanations for the prosecutor," I replied. "If you're looking for sympathy, you've come to the wrong place." Brian's lawyer stepped forward. "My client is prepared to provide complete testimony against Jessica Harrison in exchange for consideration in his own case. He has critical information about her plans for you as well." This caught my attention. "What plan?" Brian looked at his shoes. "She had the same medication ready for you. Said once William was gone, she'd work on you next. Make it look like grief and old age. She had nursing home brochures as a cover, but never intended for you to go there. Said it would be too expensive to keep you alive." I felt physically ill hearing how calmly they had planned, not just William's death but mine as well. "Tell the prosecutor everything," I said finally. "Justice for William is what matters now." As they left, I noticed several neighbors watching from their porches. The community that had initially been divided by Jessica's whispers was now united in shock at the true nature of her actions. The next morning, Sam called with news that Jessica's lawyer had withdrawn her will contest. "He knows it's hopeless," Sam explained. "With the criminal charges pending, continuing to fight, the will would only drain what resources she has left for her defense. So the house and the trust are secure," Sam confirmed. "Rachel will contact you to finalize the details, but essentially, everything will proceed as William intended." That night, alone in the house that was now legally mine, I sat in William's office surrounded by his books and memories. I found myself talking to him, telling him about the developments, assuring him that justice was being served. I like to think he heard me somehow. The case against Jessica and Brian moved forward with surprising speed. The evidence was overwhelming, and Brian's testimony provided the final nails in Jessica's legal coffin. When confronted with the mountain of evidence and her accomplice's cooperation with authorities, Jessica's attorney advised her to consider a plea deal. 2 months after her arrest, Jessica pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, in exchange for a sentence of 25 years without possibility of parole. Brian, in exchange for his testimony, received 10 years for conspiracy and accessory charges. At Jessica's sentencing hearing, I was given the opportunity to deliver a victim impact statement. I stood in the same courthouse where I had once presided, now on the other side of the bench. William was not just my son, I said, my voice steady despite the emotion. He was a man of integrity, kindness, and justice. The same qualities that made him an excellent attorney made him a trusting husband, a trust that was exploited in the cruelest way possible. I looked directly at Jessica, sitting in her prison jumpsuit, her face a mask of defeat. I do not speak today out of hatred or vengeance, but for justice. William believed in the law and its power to right wrongs. Today, the system he served faithfully serves him one last time. As Jessica was led away to begin her sentence, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The long nightmare was ending. William's killer would pay for her crimes, and his legacy would continue through the scholarship fund and the lives he had touched. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements, but I simply walked to Frank's waiting car, ready to return home and begin the next chapter of my life, one focused not on tragedy and betrayal, but on honoring William's memory and finding purpose in the years ahead. In the months following Jessica's conviction, I worked with Rachel Wilson to establish the William Harrison Foundation as outlined in my son's will. The foundation would administer the legal scholarship program for underprivileged students and oversee the eventual transition of the house to serve as its headquarters after my lifetime. William was very specific about his wishes, Rachel explained, as we finalized the paperwork. The bulk of his estate, after ensuring your security, goes to helping disadvantaged students pursue legal careers, with a focus on those interested in public service and advocacy. It was so like William to think beyond his own life, to create something meaningful from tragedy. Even in death, he was the thoughtful, caring person he'd always been. With Jessica imprisoned and the legal battles resolved, I began the process of truly healing. The house that had felt like a battleground now became a sanctuary again. I tended the garden William had loved, repainted rooms in warm colors, and filled the space with music and life. The community that had been divided during the investigation now rallied around me. Former clients of William's stopped by with casseroles and offers of help. My old colleagues from the courthouse organized a memorial service celebrating William's life and career, something we hadn't been able to do properly with Jessica's dark presence hanging over the funeral. During this period, I discovered how much of the life insurance money Jessica had already spent before her arrest. Despite William's death occurring only weeks earlier, she had purchased a luxury watch for Brian, paid deposits on a beachfront condo in Florida, and bought expensive designer clothing. The investigation revealed she had been planning their new life together for months, perhaps even years. Most of the insurance funds were recovered and added to the foundation's endowment, but Jessica's casual spending of money gained through murder was a painful reminder of her callous nature. 6 months after Jessica's conviction, I received an unexpected visit from Thomas Green, William's best friend since college, whom I hadn't seen since the funeral. "I should have come sooner," Thomas apologized as we sat in the living room. I couldn't face it all. William was like a brother to me. "I understand," I assured him. "Everyone grieves in their own way." Thomas nodded gratefully. "There's something I need to tell you, something I should have said earlier. About a month before William died, he called me very upset. He said he'd found evidence Jessica was having an affair, and had been for some time." "We know about Brian," I said. "Yes, but there's more. William told me he was planning to divorce Jessica. He'd already consulted with an attorney in another city to keep it quiet. He was gathering financial records, documenting her spending and infidelity. Did he mention suspecting her of tampering with his food or medication?" Thomas looked down. "Not explicitly, but he did say he'd been feeling strangely ill after meals Jessica prepared. I suggested food poisoning or stress, but he seemed concerned it was something more deliberate. Did you tell the police this?" "Yes, after her arrest. I gave them the dates and details of our conversations. The detective said it helped establish premeditation." As Thomas left, he handed me a photo album he'd compiled of pictures from William's college days through recent years. Fishing trips, law school graduation, the opening of his practice. "I thought you might want these," he said simply. The album became a treasured possession, a window into parts of William's life I hadn't fully witnessed. It helped me remember him in happier times, before Jessica's betrayal and the tragedy that followed. One afternoon, I received a call from Detective Callahan with disturbing news. "We've been reviewing Miss Harrison's phone records more thoroughly," he explained. "There's something concerning regarding the day of William's fatal heart attack." "What is it?" I asked, gripping the phone tightly. According to the timestamp on the 911 call, Jessica waited almost 40 minutes after finding William collapsed before calling for help. Her phone shows she made several calls during that time, all to Brian Walsh. I closed my eyes against the wave of pain this revelation brought. "Are you saying she found him in distress and deliberately delayed getting help?" "That's our current theory. The medical examiner believes that with prompt medical attention, William might have survived the heart attack. The delay was literally the difference between life and death." This new information led to additional charges against Jessica: depraved indifference and negligent homicide. Her attorney attempted to plea bargain, but the prosecutor, armed with this new evidence, refused to reduce the charges further. Meanwhile, the news of Jessica's crime and conviction had spread through legal circles across the state. Attorneys who had worked with William expressed their shock and condolences. Law journals published articles about the case, some focusing on the preventative measures spouses should take to protect themselves and their assets from potential exploitation. As William's former clients learned of the circumstances surrounding his death, many reached out to share stories of his compassion and integrity. One elderly woman brought me cookies and told me how William had reduced his fees when her husband died, leaving her with limited resources to settle a complex estate. "He was a good man," she said simply, "just like his father." These connections to William's professional life revealed a side of my son I hadn't fully appreciated. As a judge, I'd seen countless attorneys in my courtroom, but I'd never observed William's daily practice. Hearing from those whose lives he'd touched gave me a deeper understanding of the man he'd become. The William Harrison Legal Scholarship began accepting applications from promising students with financial need. As chairman of the selection committee, I found profound satisfaction in reviewing the essays from young people passionate about using the law to help others. "This is what he would have wanted," Rachel observed during one committee meeting. "William always believed the law should serve everyone, not just those who could afford expensive representation." The first recipient was Maria Gonzalez, a brilliant young woman who had worked her way through college while caring for her younger siblings after their parents were deported. Her essay about using legal knowledge to reform immigration policies had moved the entire committee. At the scholarship award ceremony, Maria approached me with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Judge Harrison. This opportunity means everything to me and my family. William would have been proud to support your journey," I told her. "He believed in justice for all, not just the privileged few." As the scholarship program took shape, Brian Walsh's testimony against Jessica continued to provide new insights into their relationship and plans. During a pretrial deposition for the additional charges, Brian revealed that Jessica had been researching methods to induce heart attacks that would appear natural for nearly a year before William's death. "She was methodical," Brian admitted. "She would show me articles about medications that could cause heart problems without leaving obvious traces. Said it was for a mystery novel she wanted to write someday." Brian's testimony portrayed him as a reluctant participant manipulated by Jessica's promises of wealth and a luxurious future together. While I found it difficult to sympathize with a man who had knowingly participated in my son's murder, his cooperation ensured Jessica would remain incarcerated for the rest of her productive life. 1 year after William's death, I hosted a memorial gathering at the house. Friends, colleagues, and clients came together to share memories and celebrate his legacy. The William Harrison Foundation had already awarded 3 scholarships and established a pro bono legal clinic at the community college, staffed by volunteer attorneys 2 days a week. During the gathering, I announced my own new endeavor, teaching a course on legal ethics at the local university's law school. William always emphasized the importance of ethical practice, I told the assembled guests. This course will honor his commitment to integrity in the legal profession. Among the attendees was Dr. Porter, William's physician, who had been instrumental in identifying the symptoms that later proved to be evidence of Jessica's poisoning. "I wish I had connected the dots sooner," he said regretfully. "Perhaps if I'd been more insistent about his symptoms." "You did everything a doctor should do," I assured him. Jessica was deliberate in her deception. Even William, who lived with her, took time to realize what was happening. As the gathering concluded, I found myself standing in William's office, now repurposed as a study space for the scholarship recipients who often came to the house for mentoring sessions. On the wall hung William's law degree, his admission to the state bar, and the first dollar he'd earned in private practice. Beside them, I'd added a new photograph. William at age 10, proudly displaying the trophy he'd won at a middle school debate competition. It was the moment he'd first declared his intention to become an attorney. Just like Dad, life would never be the same without William. But through the foundation, the scholarship program, and my own continued work, his spirit and values would endure. Jessica had taken his life, but she could not destroy his legacy. That evening, after everyone had gone, I sat on the back porch with a glass of William's favorite bourbon, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. I raised my glass in a silent toast to my son, to justice served, and to the future he had ensured would be secure, not just for me, but for generations of aspiring attorneys who would carry forward his commitment to justice and integrity. 2 years have passed since that terrible day at William's funeral when I overheard Jessica's true intentions. Life has found a new rhythm, different from before but purposeful and even, at times, joyful. The house that was once a battleground is now a place of learning and community. The basement that Jessica had wanted to renovate into a gym for her sessions with Brian has been transformed into a meeting space where senior citizens gather twice weekly for companionship and activities. Many are retired professionals who offer mentoring to the young scholarship recipients who also frequent the house. "Judge Harrison," called out George Winters, a retired accountant, as I brought down a tray of coffee for their weekly chess tournament. "We've got a new member today." I set down the tray and extended my hand to an elegant woman in her 70s, whom I recognized as the former principal of the local high school. "Helen Barnes," she introduced herself. "I've heard wonderful things about what you're doing here." "Just continuing what William started," I replied, a response that had become almost automatic when people praised the Foundation's work. The William Harrison Foundation has flourished beyond my expectations. What began as a simple scholarship program has expanded to include internship placements, LSAT preparation courses for disadvantaged students, and the pro bono clinic that now operates 5 days a week, with a rotating roster of volunteer attorneys. Rachel Wilson remains the Foundation's legal counsel, though she's semi-retired now. "This is the most rewarding work of my career," she told me recently. "William would be so proud of what you've built." Sam Turner left his previous firm to serve as the Foundation's executive director, bringing his legal expertise and management skills to help expand our programs. Under his leadership, we've secured additional funding from legal associations and corporate donors, allowing us to double the number of scholarships offered. The criminal case against Jessica reached its final conclusion last month when her appeal was denied by the state Supreme Court. She will serve her full sentence of 25 years, with no possibility of parole until she is well into her 60s. Brian Walsh received a reduced sentence for his cooperation, but will still serve 8 years for his role in William's death. I've had no direct contact with Jessica since her conviction, but her mother visited me 6 months ago, seeking some kind of closure or understanding. "I don't know where we went wrong with Jessica," Eleanor Parker said tearfully as we sat in the living room. "She was always headstrong, but I never imagined she could do something so terrible." "Some choices can't be explained," I replied, finding unexpected compassion for this woman who had lost her daughter to prison and greed. William believed everyone has the capacity for both good and evil. Our choices define us, not our upbringing or circumstances. Eleanor nodded sadly. "I've tried to visit her in prison, but she refuses to see me. Says I betrayed her by attending William's memorial service." Before leaving, Eleanor handed me a small package. These were William's grandparents' wedding rings. "Jessica somehow ended up with them after the funeral. They should stay in your family." The return of these family heirlooms, which I'd assumed lost forever, was an unexpected gift, a small piece of family history rescued from Jessica's destructive path. The house has undergone a complete transformation over these 2 years. Gone are the cold, modern furnishings Jessica preferred, replaced with comfortable pieces that welcome visitors and create a warm atmosphere for the various gatherings now hosted here. William's office remains largely unchanged, a quiet memorial to his life and work. His law books line the shelves, and his desk still occupies the center of the room, though now it serves as a study space for scholarship recipients preparing for exams or working on research projects. Maria Gonzalez, our first scholarship recipient, graduated law school last month at the top of her class. She's accepted a position with the district attorney's office, focusing on victims' advocacy. "Your son's story inspired my career choice," she told me at her graduation celebration. "I want to give voice to those who can't speak for themselves, just as you did for William." This summer, with the help of Frank and several other friends, I converted the detached garage into a small apartment for Jason Lewis, our newest scholarship recipient who couldn't afford housing near the university. He helps maintain the property in exchange for the living space, and his presence provides security for the house and company for me. Frank remains my closest friend and strongest support. At 74, he's slowed down a bit physically, but remains sharp as ever mentally. Our weekly poker games have become a tradition that now includes several retired attorneys, a former detective, and occasionally Sam Turner when his schedule permits. My health, which suffered during the stress of Jessica's manipulation and William's death, has gradually improved. I walk 3 miles each morning, tend the garden William loved, and find that purpose is the best medicine for grief. Dr. Porter, William's physician who first raised concerns about his unusual symptoms, now serves on the Foundation's board and has established a health advocacy program for elderly citizens, helping them recognize and address potential exploitation or abuse. "What happened to William and what almost happened to you is more common than people realize," he explained during a recent board meeting. "Elderly individuals with assets are particularly vulnerable to manipulation by those they should be able to trust." The program provides free health screenings and confidential consultations for seniors concerned about unexplained symptoms or suspicious behavior by caregivers or family members. In its first year of operation, it has already identified 3 cases of potential poisoning and numerous instances of financial exploitation. This morning, I sat on the back porch watching the sunrise, a cup of coffee in hand, reflecting on the journey of these past 2 years. The pain of losing William will never completely fade, but it has been transformed into something productive, a legacy that continues to grow and touch lives. Jessica's betrayal taught me harsh lessons about trust and human nature, but it also revealed the depth of community support and friendship that had always surrounded me. For every person who believed her lies, dozens more stood firmly by me, offering help and comfort during the darkest days. The path to healing hasn't been straightforward. There were nights when grief overwhelmed me, days when anger threatened to consume my thoughts. But gradually, purpose replaced pain, and action overcame despair. Today, I'm meeting with a young law student named Christopher who reminds me so much of William at that age, earnest, brilliant, determined to make a difference. He's researching elder law and protective services for a thesis project, inspired in part by William's story. I've pulled William's books on estate planning and elder protection from the shelves and arranged them on the desk for Christopher's arrival. As I placed the last volume in position, I noticed William's favorite fountain pen, a graduation gift from Martha and me, still in the desk drawer. Holding it brought back a flood of memories. William practicing his signature as a new attorney, drafting his first will, signing the papers for this house that has now become a center for learning and community. I placed the pen with the books, a small piece of William, to pass along to the next generation of legal minds he continues to inspire even in his absence. Life takes unexpected turns, some tragic, some transformative. When I stood alone at William's funeral and overheard Jessica's cruel words, I could never have imagined the journey that lay ahead, the pain, the battles, but also the triumph of justice and the creation of a lasting legacy. William once told me, during a difficult case early in his career, "Dad, sometimes the greatest injustices lead to the most important changes. Our job is to make sure the change is for the better." In honoring his memory through the Foundation and Scholarship Program, I've tried to follow that wisdom. The doorbell rings. Christopher arriving for our meeting. As I move to answer it, I pass the living room wall where photographs of William now hang alongside pictures of our scholarship recipients and community events. His presence infuses everything we do here, a guiding spirit for the work that continues in his name. I welcome Christopher into the home that William loved, that Jessica tried to take, and that has now become a place of purpose and hope. In my 71st year, I've discovered that life's greatest challenges can lead to unexpected new beginnings. The most valuable lesson I've learned through this journey is that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to choose our response. Jessica chose deception and destruction. I've chosen to build something meaningful from the ruins of tragedy. That choice has made all the difference. What about you? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal or loss? How did you find the strength to move forward? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if William's story touched you in any way, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing with others who might find hope in this journey from betrayal to new purpose. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength for whatever challenges you may face in your own life journey.